We were at a family reunion, and our grandpa told us about making some canoes in the 60s, and so we thought, well, that sounds like fun. And yeah, so that's the initial beginning.
Yeah, the first summer was just spent building a cedar strip canoe out of basically no knowledge at all. We bought a book and went from there and made some paddles to go with it. That was the summer of '09. We built the canoe, and then we didn't actually start making paddles or producing or selling or anything until the next summer. So 2010 essentially was the beginning of Sanborn as a business, but Sanborn as a hobby and a fun project was 2009.
So it was a year of trial and error, lots and lots of
Lots of error.
Yeah.
Everything's done in-house, so we get lumber from local lumber yards and hardware stores. So we go through a lot of wood just to find one board or two boards. We usually, we don't skimp on getting the best lumber we can find.
And like the most striking things about our paddles is, well, the most striking thing is the contrast between lights and darks. That's really important in the pieces we choose.
And the wood grain. We usually try and get the worst, the craziest grain we can find. The stuff we like, actually.
Run it through the table saw, cut it to the varying thicknesses that we need, and then...
Yeah, there's numerous different little things that we probably don't even think about anymore when we're cutting down the wood. Like in every shaft, we have 2 or 3 different thicknesses of strips that we put in there. They're all, the same width or whatever, but some are 3/8 thick, some are 1/8 thick, some are 16 thick to get the right pattern we want. And then there's a difference between the shaft wood that we use and the stuff we use on the blade and maybe the grip. Shaft really needs long, straight grain that's going to be stronger, hold up, because it's super long, and if you have side grain, it'll split and crack and break a lot sooner than if you have really long straight grain. And then we usually use the crazy grain that really wouldn't hold up on a shaft in the blade. And then we sandwich it with fiberglass so it's still strong, but it looks better than just a straight grain.
Well, you grab the pieces with the thicknesses you want, cut them to the length you want, and then lay them out, spread glue over them.
We kind of have a gluing table where we can lay out 2 or 3 shafts at a time. So you have your, 15, 20 strips all laid out on the table, and we can roll on with a roller glue over all of the strips, and then kind of line them all up together in the pattern we want. Also, another thing is we always want to make sure the grain is alternating, so really have to pay attention to which pieces go where and which side they're glued on, even every single little strip. So we lay them out, roll it on, put it together, and then we kind of set it to the back of the table and lay out all our pipe clamps, bar clamps. We actually have a metal rebar thing that we squish. We can do 3 or 4 shafts at the same time, glued together, so we kind of lay them in there and squish them all together, and they glue up straight.
And then put them together, and usually we'll glue a few shafts together at the same time, and then clamp them on bar clamps, and usually it's like an hour and a half, 2 hours. It takes us probably an hour and a half or 2 hours to make a paddle from start to finish, but it's a lot of hurry up and then wait, hurry up and then wait. But then, so gluing, you put them all together, put them in the bar clamps, glue up the shafts, and then you pull them off an hour and a half later. And depending on what kind of paddle it is, you do something different. If it's a straight shaft, then you glue on the blade. If it's a bent shaft, then you cut in the angle of the blade, of the bend. And then once that's dry, then you glue on the blade. Well, once it's glued, then one of us will take that piece, and we each have our own workstations where we'll lay down the piece. We plane it down to thickness. Essentially what we do is we lay it out flat. We have a pattern we trace out,
what the blade's going to look like for every different model or whatever, and then we go to the bandsaw and cut it. Kind of we rip together and glue together and all that stuff, but once you take it away from the glue station, that's where it kind of goes to a certain craftsman, and they do every step of the rest of the paddle. It's done by one person. You can have big routers that cut everything out perfectly, and it's the machine doing the work, but we really value handmade quality and handmade artistry, so a lot of things, that's one of the steps where you really can screw it up. It really takes a craftsman's eye and touch and feel. You have to shape the blade, which involves clamping and running block planes and or power planers, sanders, chisels, any number of tools to get it to the right shape. I think we do it a little differently.
Probably. I usually will get it down to roughly the thickness with the power planer, and then I'll chisel the shaft to the nice smooth, curve to it. And then, I don't know if you do it, but I chisel out the joint there to get rid of all the glue, and that makes it a little bit easier later to sand.
Mm-hmm.
And then after that stage, it's basically the shape, where you've run it over with the block plane and chisels.
Yeah, I mean, that's really the time where being a craftsman comes into it, and the artistry of making one. I mean, you're shaping you're really just sculpting a paddle. You have a sort of squared off version of it, but you have to shape the blade to you have a spine that kind of meets the blade, and if it doesn't look good or if it's not squared off right, your paddle just won't work right. It won't look good.
Well, when we were first starting, we watched a lot of videos about it, and people set up router jigs where they could just run the router right over it and it'd be cut perfectly every time. And we decided we didn't want to do that.
Yeah, it didn't appeal to us.
Yeah. And we also heard about bigger paddle manufacturers. They've got many $1,000 machine that just two sanders that close in on either side, and it's a perfect paddle when it comes out.
No, we can't afford that.
Well, yeah, but even if we could, I'm not sure that we would do it anyway.
No.
Our favorite part. We love sanding.
Yeah.
Love it. More the better. Yeah. No. Yeah. So then we sand it mostly with a drum, and that'll get all the big flat surfaces and do the shaft. And so we sand it to 80 grit, and then so with the drum, and then there's little nooks and crannies in the grip and whatever, and we'll sand those with an orbital.
And then, usually the final sanding is by hand. Kind of go over everything, little touch-ups, and you kind of sometimes when you get in there with your hands, you can tell what the little details that you might have missed. And so you're sanding, you can sand those out, or you have to go back and do another step if you miss something. Because any little thing will either catch on your hand when you're paddling, or various things. So.
The next step, we'll brand our logo onto the blade.
It's a little swoop at the end of a canoe. It's just a simple little design with our name and the little bow of the canoe. It's very permanent, and it's very
distinctive.
A wood brand belongs in the woods, whereas a sticker doesn't. I don't know. It's sort of really a wood branded thing is more woodsy.
So once they've been branded, then we'll take them into the fiberglass room. We have room for 14 paddles, and we just attach them by the grip to the table and have them lay there, wipe them clean, and then off we go. Get the fiberglass ready, and then we roll on a coat of epoxy, let that soak into the wood a little bit, with the goal of getting a deeper finish, get it even more sealed. And then we put the sheet of fiberglass over, and then we'll roll on another coat of epoxy until it's completely wet out. And once it's wet out, we get the fast drying stuff, so usually the next day we can we can sand it smooth. Once the fiberglass is sanded smooth, then we coat the whole thing in epoxy, which will seal it. And
Yeah, it's the first step in the final finish. It's kind of the really hard undercoat that seeps into all the little pores and really seals up the water from getting out. And then beyond that, the epoxy finish is then the whole paddle is dipped. Most of our paddles have an oiled grip, so we won't dip that in varnish. But the rest is dipped in a marine grade varnish to seal up. That's the final coat, a big, thick, goopy varnish.
and they drip dry over the course of a couple of days.
Yeah, it's essentially like brushing on tons of coats of varnish, dipping it that way. So, and then the grips on most of our paddles, the wilderness paddles, are oiled. We use linseed oil we oil them because it's a much nicer feel when you're paddling. It's almost like someone's opening a gift when they get one of our paddles. Kind of a special event when they pull it out of the box. It's all wrapped up nicely, and there's actually thought into how we wrap everything up. I guess Sanborn Canoe Company is kind of our approach to the world, kind of introducing other people to the heritage and canoeing history that we enjoy and love. Through Sanborn, we've kind of taken on a lot of challenges that have really learned a lot of things about the old way of doing things, like tapping maple syrup or just beyond just crafting things. It's just kind of an approach to things like that. Like you said, you want something like a saw or an axe or something. We look at it in a different way now versus just going and buying. Even if we were going to replace an axe head, you can buy those at the store. But why do that when you have lumber outside, or you have that kind of thing where you can craft your own and kind of learn how other people have done it in the past and put your own spin on it. At the end of the day, at a normal job, people are like, oh, I want to go home, I got to get out of here. And usually the end of the day around here is like, oh, I didn't quite get done what I want to get done. Can I stay a little longer? Like, I want to get it done. Like, you're never really looking at the clock of when you can go home, other than, oh, I got to get a lot of stuff done. Because, and it's never like a chore to think, oh, I really have to get this stuff done today. It's more just, fitting everything in, the challenge of that.
I'm Todd Randall.
And I'm Zach Feldman, and we're Sanborn Canoe Company.